Welcome in, everybody. Obviously, it's just me and David right now. It's not the normal Zoom room with 1,000 little squares around, but I wanted to change things up a little bit this week for everyone and bring on a special guest that I have just a private conversation with. We're going to make this available to you so that by the time you guys are seeing this, you'll be able to see just kind of a candid conversation between myself and our guest today, who has something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for what we normally talk about. If you guys have no clue who I am, even you're just finding this because maybe you Googled David. This is the Estate Professionals Mastermind podcast. We are tied in with the Probate Mastery course, specializing in helping real estate professionals, typically agents and investors, grow their business in the inheritance space. Our call today is going to be a little bit different because of the specialty and the unique ability and focus that David brings to the table. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce David Burleigh to you guys. David, tell us about yourself. What do you do, and why are you here?
Well, Bruce, I am really happy to be here. I am located in Cincinnati, and obviously, you and I got connected via the internet. I'm an attorney by background, but I've got a pretty unusual approach where I have two different businesses that serve the same mix of clients, and they're really focused on ownership, which is why I think we have some stuff that might benefit, particularly your real estate practitioners.
Hmm. Yep. So ownership, how does it benefit ownership, or how does it engage with owners, and why? Even though it's different, and this is a big tease, so we're gonna actually go into how it's different. But how do you think it ties into the real estate practitioner phase?
First of all, I am not a realtor.
Hmm.
I probably know less about real estate than anybody on this call. I do not claim to be any kind of real estate expert at all. So I want to disclaim all of that. But what I would say is that if you are a residential agent serving, any markets in the United States in the year 2024, I think you can add value to your business and you can serve your clients even better if you think in terms of what they own. You say to yourself, well, of course I do that. They own a house. That's why they called me. That's the name of the
Right.
deal here. Okay. I'm like, I understand that. I'm talking about what else do they own? I'm
Hmm.
talking about thinking comprehensively about uh, the big things that they own. So, for example, you have a 52-year-old woman who calls you about her mother who is aging, who needs to sell a 3,000 square foot house that she's lived in for the last 43 years. And it's
Okay.
worth, let's say it's worth, you think it's worth somewhere, let's say $800,000. I'm just picking a number. Okay. What this lady owns is a house that's probably in a pretty nice neighborhood. And she owns a bunch of stuff in the house. And who knows what that is? It's a bunch of furniture. It's family mementos. It's stuff that has a lot of emotional value to it. Maybe she has some stock certificates in there that are worth a lot. Maybe she has a couple of cars in the garage that are collectibles. Who knows? But the point is that you, the agent, ought to be thinking about what does this lady own, not just the piece of property that's going to be sold. That's the point.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So when they have the collectibles and they have the antiques and they have, in some cases, businesses and different things, what should the professional's involvement be, and what's your involvement?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll answer that last part first. I'll give you a little background on me, which I think the typical agent might also appreciate. So, yes, I'm a lawyer. Yes, I practice law, but what I do now is quite a bit different than where I started. So, when I was a kid, when I was in grade school, I thought it'd be cool to be a lawyer. And I thought that for most of high school and on into college. And then I took a detour because I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I got married. Marriage has a way of focusing you. So I went to law school right away.
Yeah, yeah.
I went back and picked up where I left off. Went to law school and then practiced law for about 15 years. And I came upon this family that owned this company together, and it had been started in the 1920s, and it was still going. I think by that time it was like in the fourth generation, and it was owned by a group of cousins. And I am sure, I guarantee you that plenty of the people in this family had bought and sold houses, any number of houses in multiple cities.
Sure.
Um, so they own this business together, and that's how they make a living. And I thought it was the neatest thing I'd ever seen. I mean, they all had the right job for what they were good at. As far as I could tell, they really didn't get any fights, which was quite unusual. I mean, they were never upset at each other. So I thought I want to do more of this. So starting in about 2010, that's what I did, and that's what I've been doing for the what I would say the second 15 years of my career.
Okay. Okay.
And so in that second 15 years, I created this other business that is outside the law firm. It's called Family Enterprise Office, and it really tries to help people, whether I am their quote lawyer or not, help them really zero in on things that they own that might have some complexity to them, where they're really going to maybe need some more help. And it's all kinds of stuff. It might be, it could be a business that they own, let's say with family. Maybe it's real estate. I mean, we to be fair, we do deal with a lot of real estate. One time I dealt with some sixth generation farmers. That was pretty
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
We've had houses that we've dealt with. On the law side, we had a fellow who died about a year and a half ago. He basically had no family. His wife was dead. They never had any children. He had he had a ton of stuff in this house. I mean, it was overwhelming.
Mm.
Um, so, I'm there not because I'm like some kind of guru dealing with stuff in somebody's basement. I'm there because I'm the one who's dealt with everything else that he's owned. And so,
Mhm.
he listed us to help him take care of things after he died. As a matter of fact, I planned his funeral. He died on a Friday. I went to his house Monday morning, went to the closet, picked out some clothing to put on him in the casket so he looked good.
Wow. Yeah.
I then went to the funeral home and dealt with all of that. And, so I guess another point here would be that for your agents to consider is that if you think in terms of what the people own, um, you will be able, I think, to create even more value because you can sort of go in whatever direction the client needs. Um, and I'll stop there because I've got another thing that I think will be important to them, but I'm going to stop there for the moment.
Okay, okay. Well, I when you kind of shared a little bit of your background, I realized that I just completely skipped over that and started asking questions. This kind of topic is so unique. So many, specifically in the real estate practice. You go out and you get your real estate license, and maybe you've never done an end of life transition before. Maybe you've never even heard of probate before, and all of a sudden you get this list of probate records, and you say, "Hey, there's a lot of really good opportunities here for my business." And you call someone, and they say, "How dare you? My loved one just died, and the only thing that you're doing is trying to swoop in and either buy my house at a bargain or make a commission on me." And so often professionals need to lead with more value, and they need to understand more about the process, and not only the process of navigating through this complex probate or estate settlement angle, but also how to help your clients, how to help your connections avoid that process in the future. So one of the things that I was especially intrigued by when we were connected was the fact that you deal with family enterprises, which I have to admit, being in the industry for 20 plus years and working in probate and training in probate, I didn't know what a family enterprise was. Now, my students are mostly smarter than I am, so they probably know, but I'd like to dig into that a little bit. And then your expertise in trust as well. So maybe start by breaking down what is a trust and your involvement, and then maybe we can move to family enterprise for a minute after that.
Yeah, sure. And if you don't mind, I'm going to talk about trusts in the context of probate
Hmm.
because I think it will help the audience kind of understand why I do think there's a lot of value in them being involved in the probate end of things.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so when somebody dies, basically, if you imagine everything that you own, cash in the bank, your house, retirement plans, everything that's in the house, I mean, everything that you own, at your death, if you are sorting it for purposes of whether it can be passed on immediately or whether somebody else needs to get involved, um, basically, it's as though you're looking at a house that has two rooms. And the one room, you may as well have a label at the top that says probate, and the other is non-probate. And people hear stuff sometimes on TV about probate, and they think, "Oh, this is like the worst thing that's ever happened." In a way, it isn't in the sense that. So, what probate is where the court gets involved in the process of making sure that what the person wanted done with their property actually gets done. And that's
Hmm.
good. I mean, because obviously you want what you want. The problem, at least in Ohio, where I am, and I know some other states, is that probate can be expensive and it can take a while. And the family gets frustrated because they're like, "Look, my uncle has been dead now for however many months, and we're still messing around with, why can't the court move faster, and what's going on here?"
Right.
So it's a value uh, for somebody to be provided, but it's also not the most efficient way to do it. So what the person has is a choice about how do they want their stuff to be titled to begin with,
Hmm.
and there are, I, well, I'd say there's three basic categories of things that don't get probated. Trust being the last part. So, for example, if it's if it's some kind of asset that you own jointly with somebody else. So, for example, my wife and I have a joint checking account. If something happens to me, she's still an owner of it, even though I'm not here anymore.
Hmm.
So, if it's a joint checking account, if it's a jointly held asset, it doesn't go through probate. Number two would be something that transfers by way of a contract.
Hmm.
So when the person dies, let's suppose they have an IRA, the IRA money is going to get paid to whoever they designated with the company that's managing the money for them. So if that was done correctly, as long as it wasn't like paid to their probate estate, which is a terrible idea, as long as that doesn't happen, the money is going to go to whoever they designated. That doesn't get probated either.
Hmm.
The third category, which is what the book pertains to, is things that are owned in a trust. So now we get to your question about, okay, what's a trust? What's that all about? How does that work? Um, a trust is simply a type of an owner. Um, so you've got the joint ownership that I just gave the example of. Then, of course, the obvious thing is something that you own by yourself. That's probably the simplest category.
Right.
So my car, let's say, I'm the sole owner of my car.
Hmm.
That's something I own alone. Then I have things that I own jointly. Well, a trust is simply another type of an owner. And what you're doing is, let's say you, Bruce, are setting a trust up. You are taking this property that you're going to put in it and you're putting it under the control of someone else who's going to have the name of a trustee. And the reason you're doing this is because you want to make sure that if anything happens to you, either you're incapacitated or you're unavailable or you're dead,
Hmm.
that this property is going to get taken care of uh, for the people that you're trying to benefit.
Okay.
So there are, if you think of a trust as like I think of it as like a three-sided table. So at one corner, you've got the person who sets it up. At the second corner, you got the trustee. At the third corner, you have the people you're trying to benefit who are called the beneficiaries.
Hmm.
So that's basically what it is. I mean, when you boil it down, it's an ownership structure where you are sort of taking charge of what you own and you're protecting it so that it goes to the people that you want to benefit.
Hmm. Are you, being the original owner of the asset, putting it into a trust, designating a trustee, does that make you one of the beneficiaries while you live, or are the beneficiaries completely separate from your kind of seat? What seat are you holding in that trust? Would be a better way to ask that question.
That is an excellent question. Because sometimes this ends up looking like one of those Where's Waldo puzzles. I mean, you're like all over the place. You're the guy who set it up, you're the trustee, and you're the beneficiary. Can you benefit yourself? Absolutely. Yeah. So the answer is it depends on which way you want to set it. Maybe you're not doing this to benefit yourself.
Hmm.
Maybe you don't care about, you don't need the money for yourself, let's say. In that event, you're not a beneficiary. But I'd say in most cases, people make themselves the beneficiaries of their own trusts.
Hmm.
So for example, it benefits Bruce while he's alive, and then at his death, it's going to benefit Bruce's wife,
Hmm.
and then at her death, it'll benefit their kids. Let's say they've got three kids, it's going to split into three parts, one share per child, and it'll benefit the kids.
Okay. I know we haven't tied it to probate yet, but let me ask you this before we go there. Why would someone want to set up a trust and do it this way, as opposed to just writing out a will, properly documenting it, and pointing it to their um, designees? And I know that's not the right word, on their death.
Well, the first reason, of course, would be that they don't want it to have to be probated to begin with. But
Okay.
in addition to that, there are, I would call them the big four
Hmm.
reasons. So if you give, I mean, if you give somebody a dollar bill, you just take it out of your wallet and give it to them. That's great. They own it, immediately.
Hmm.
The problem is that potentially somebody can come along and take it from them. And that's where the big four comes in. So let's suppose that the person that you're trying to benefit with this gift that you're making um, has, um, I don't know, they've got a business that hasn't gone very well and it might be on the verge of bankruptcy. And there are potentially creditors who could come after them personally.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we don't want them to take the dollar out of the hand.
Hmm.
We don't want them to have, I don't know, let's suppose they've got a drug problem. Okay, well, the money's going to go away and it won't benefit them. So we don't want that. Unfortunately, in most parts of the country, the divorce rate is about 50%. So, as I've said to
Yeah.
my wife,
Yeah.
statistically, the riskiest creditor you've got is the person you're married to.
Yeah.
She didn't think that was funny, but anyway, so
Wonder
no,
why.
really, you got the risk of divorce. So what happens if you're trying to benefit a child, but maybe not the in-law? Well, you don't want the dollar to go, elsewhere. And I guess the fourth would be just overall financial problems.
Hmm.
I mean, okay, you've got a grandchild who is incredibly talented, but just seems to have trouble handling money.
Sure.
You don't want them to go off to college and somebody finds out that they have some money there, and then all of a sudden they have a whole bunch of new best friends.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, if it's in a trust, it's going to protect them. And again, the point here is that you're trying to benefit them. It's not that you're trying to punish them or
Yeah.
that you don't like other people or something like that. It's that you want to give this money to somebody in particular and you want to benefit them. You don't want to benefit somebody else. So so those four reasons plus the first one about the probate, um, I think are good reasons to set up a trust. Now, does this mean you need a trust? Is a trust like the ultimate solution to every problem? No, it is not. I'm not recommending that if somebody has a bunch of stuff they're trying to deal with, that they set up a trust and that's going to solve it. It might, but it might not. Um, so that's all the more reason why people need to think about what do they own. And if you are to get back to the residential agent that you guys have in your audience, that's why if they're really trying to help the client, it's useful for them to have some kind of sense about, well, okay, what do these people own? I mean, what's going on here, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because
Um,
potentially they can refer all sorts of spin-off business out of this. They
yeah,
can they can
absolutely.
refer business to lawyers, accountants, insurance people.
Hmm. That's one of the biggest things that we teach. And if you guys haven't heard this, the idea here is that you are not building a business that's focused around one point of sale. Maybe there is a probate case and there is a house that can't be held on to, and they need the money. The heirs need the money, and they need to sell. The idea here is you are building a business, and you need to have relationships with um, uh, the executors, not the executors, the estate planning attorneys. You need to have a relationship with the accountants and the financial advisors and the insurance agents. Have those relationships so that you can um, not only take care of your client better in the future, and most of your clients, especially if you formed that relationship during their probate process, most of them are going to want to avoid probate themselves in the future. So if they're inheriting any kind of asset, even though you may have picked the relationship up and built that credibility with them and built the relationship through a probate process, you need to help them avoid it in the future in most cases.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree. That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Can you think of any cases where maybe someone it would be more beneficial for them to leave their assets in a will, kind of directed through a will that has to be probated, or is
Oh,
probate to be
yeah,
avoided at most
right. I
times?
should I should address the other side of that question. Yeah. Well, first of all, I am a fan of you want the solution to fit the client, which also means you don't want it to be any more complex than necessary.
Hmm.
So, in some cases, if the estate is not very big, or there really isn't a whole lot going on other than the house, let's say, I mean, because that comes up sometimes, then yeah, I think just a straight up will is fine.
Hmm.
And the other thing I should say, just so I'm clear, is that there are two types of trusts in this situation. There are the types that are set up, it's like a standalone separate thing apart from the will. But then there's also a type of a trust that can fit inside the will. And those don't happen so much in Ohio, but I know, for example, in Kentucky, that's the predominant way of doing it.
Interesting.
And another, so I need to, I don't want to mislead anybody here. Whether we're talking about two separate legal documents depends on what state you're in.
Okay.
But yeah, there are plenty of cases where if the people simply don't need the uh, additional complexity that goes with a trust, then there shouldn't be one. I think all I'm saying is that in order to figure the complexity question out, they just have to understand what they're dealing with, and they need to kind of think through the whole picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I don't want to transition prematurely, but I would like to discuss two separate things. Number one is part of the reason why we connected is your book
Oh yeah.
and why my audience needs to get it, why I highly recommend it. We were on a really short book kick before we started. We read and follow some of the same authors, being Dan Kennedy. But I want to talk about the book, um, kind of formulate some ideas of why some of my audience should go out and get it. I highly recommend it. And then maybe what they should do with the book in addition to just keeping it for themselves and reading it. Okay. Because I feel like some of their clients may benefit from the book as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, I
Okay.
certainly hope they will. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here, I'll put it up there so you can see.
Oh, you're blurred.
Oh, I'm blurred. All right. Well, there it is. The title of the book is called "Take Ownership of What You Own," and the subtitle is a little bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain it because I think it'll help. The subtitle is "Build Your Confidence to Navigate the World of Trusts and Family Enterprise."
Hmm.
What I was trying to do with the book is put two concepts together that I just find don't, for some reason, get treated the same way. You were talking about what's a family enterprise. Well, really, it's like a family business. It's maybe just a little broader. Um, a lot of people will talk about, a family business, and really what they mean is a what I would call an operating company. It's a business that either makes things or distributes things,
Hmm.
and people in the family work in it. Um, the reason I say enterprise is because I think it captures other things that people and families get into together, like owning land. They don't necessarily work in a business that's on the land, but they own it together. Um, Sometimes it involves vacation properties.
Hmm.
It's stuff that they either they do it together or it's some kind of like family activity that means enough to them that it really affects the whole fabric of the family.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with family enterprise. Okay, so what I typically find out there is you've got this whole world of kind of family business people. They'll help you improve the profitability of the company. They'll help you with operations. They'll help you with employee benefits. They'll help you build a board of directors, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Taxes. And then there's the whole world of trust, which is usually lawyers. That you have lawyers running around creating trust for people, helping them with their estate plans. And at least in my experience, that those two things don't really sort of come together as much as I think is useful in order to really benefit the families.
Okay.
Because again, if a trust is simply a type of an owner, and a family enterprise is if it's things like think in terms of like real estate, it's stuff that they own.
Hmm.
Well, you got the owner and you got the thing that's owned. Why wouldn't you sort of think of them as kind of an integrated whole if you're trying to figure out, kind of what do you want to do with all the stuff that you own, or if you're trying to help somebody who's in that situation. So
Yeah.
that's where the subtitle comes from. And that's the whole idea behind family enterprises. So, for example, there's a chapter in there that kind of walks through what's a trust. Because most people are like, I don't know. You tell me.
Right.
Somebody tells me what it means, and it makes even less sense than when they started. So there's a whole chapter on what is a trust. There's a chapter on um, kind of the concept of what's a family enterprise, and I've got lots and lots of examples.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, I start out with a real life example, a family that I dealt with, and it talks about the little town that they were in, and they're working in this tiny town in Ohio that the headquarters is at a dead end street, doesn't even have a street sign.
Yeah.
And you get in there, and it turns out that they have they make things, they make a particular product, and they made it in 6 different plants in the United States. They had an operation in Ireland. I think they had an operation in France. I mean, you would never, ever have known that
Yeah.
this was going on in this little town. So they influence a lot of people. That's the other thing I think that your agents will want to appreciate.
Hmm.
Um, if you've got somebody like this, they are touching many, many people, not just in your community, but all over the place. And so if you can really help them, you're doing a whole lot of good for a whole lot of people, including people you will never meet.
Hmm.
So the book goes into some of that, and then the second half, after we kind of get through what is a trust, lays out, okay, now that you've got these concepts, how can you put them to work for yourself and for people you're related to?
Hmm.
And then there's a whole chapter that's a case study at the end involving a family that I made up. Uh, and then there's a section at the end, a little bit about me, which is the conclusion, and that's it. So
Okay.
um, that's the deal.
So I think it's important to note again why we're talking about this for those that maybe have never been over to my channel before. For those that are in the real estate space and maybe you're new. And I get this type of question all the time, especially when we have guests on coaching calls and different things like that that don't always exactly perfectly pertain to the probate niche. And people will pop in chat, especially if we're doing it live in front of an audience. They'll be like, "When are we going to talk about probate deals?" Okay. And what so many professionals or want to be professionals in the real estate space need to recognize is we start with probate, and on our side of the business, we start with probate because that's where the public records are.
Right.
So when you're building a niche for yourself in the real estate space or the insurance space, or maybe a lot of attorneys as well, financial advisors, they might go after the public data and start building those relationships. But as you provide more and more value and more services to the families that you're serving in probate, you're going to find that the connections that you've made, the problems you start solving, the vendor team that you put together, all these things build this business for you that needs to be taken outside of probate. So a lot of our students get a lot of business through like a downsizing niche. They have relationships with nursing homes and assisted living facilities and senior moving companies and estate planners. Okay. And they start to help their relationships form trusts. And I haven't run into anyone that I work with building family enterprises before, but these are all the types of things that you are going to find you need. It may not always be perfectly fit in this little square hole for Susie that is the executor for a small estate going through probate, but it's gonna fit for your business as a whole. And the faster you recognize that as someone in real estate or whatever, the faster you recognize that and the more knowledgeable you can get on this process, the faster I think your business is going to grow.
Yeah, right. I mean, just to, get down to brass tacks with the audience here. I mean, they want to know, how are they going to make money?
Sure.
This is work. As I like to say, I do my charitable giving in the evenings. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
You work during the day and you want to be paid for it. So here, I'll just give you an example. So I told you about the guy who died last year who didn't have any family. Okay.
Hmm.
We got, and I had never been through all of his house. Okay. I'd been in one room where he was sitting in his chair with the oxygen, but I had never been through the rest of the house. So after he's dead and I go through the house, I can't believe it. I was like, I was just almost like exhausted, looking at all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did I do? And there was no realtor involved yet either.
Mhm.
So what did I do? I called the realtor who I know the best, who I really prefer working with. I said, we want you to list this property. Um, but you're going to die when you go inside because you're not going to believe what all's there. He says to me, don't worry, everything's fine. We have a service that will help you take care of that.
Yep.
Now, he didn't say whether it was a unique process service that his agency had created. He didn't say whether it was a service that he outsourced, he got some other vendor to provide it. He didn't tell me. And honestly, I didn't care.
Right.
From the customer's vantage point, the question is, what can this agent do to help me? So I heard that and I'm like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we need.
Hmm.
So if you're the agent, the fact that you recognize that that's the scope of the value that you can provide, number one, and number two, the fact that you've got a process lined up to do it, uh, guess what? You get that done, and there's money there, and then you list the house, and there's already money there anyway, and then you have referrals. The wheel just turns. So
That's right. Yep.
there you
So
go.
this is good stuff. This is exactly what so many people just get super fixated on. Where am I going to make money today? And I don't want to do anything outside of this little tiny pinpoint of where I'm going to make money today. This is a relationship business. We're all in a relationship business. That's why we're here on this call. Um, if you're going to have a relationship business, you need to become a linchpin. That's another great book. Um, it is linchpin is become that person that is the connector, is the go-between. It's the go-between between your clients and someone like David. Is the go-between for someone that's inheriting wealth and they just need to protect it. Okay, maybe there's a house sale, maybe there's not. We're placing a couple of property management properties today. um, I don't really get any benefit from property management services. I used to, decided I didn't like it, um, but somebody else does. So those connections and serving families that where maybe there's not an immediate visible benefit to you, that's where business growth is, and that's where personal growth is. The satisfaction in this niche is huge.
Oh yeah, yeah, very, because you're dealing with people at a time when they are vulnerable, and they've got um anything that's touching on their family, no matter what's in the house and what needs to be dealt with, it's going to be a big deal for them. And as far as the, making money on the pinpoint versus all the other points, I mean, I don't know about you, but I would like to make money not just on Monday, but on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, so
Right.
uh, I think the way you approach this, I mean, I definitely agree with it. I think it's really helpful for the agents that you're talking to.
Mhm. So let's talk about kind of your involvement. Are you typically in your personal business, are you typically on the front end while the current owner is living? Or are you ever called in on the back end when probate's been filed and there's this inheritance that needs to get cleaned up, or maybe the
Uh,
inheritance needs to get redistributed into a trust or something? What's your business look like?
Primarily front end,
Okay.
but occasionally back end.
Okay.
Every once in a while, we'll have something that comes up where we're like, oh my, but mostly front end, because it's easier to, obviously it's easier to help people plan uh, beforehand than after.
Yeah, right. Yes.
There are things you can do sometimes after the person's dead. Here, I'll give you an example. Let's suppose that fella dies. He has some stuff that gets probated, including, let's say, a couple pieces of real estate, and the probated assets go into a trust to benefit, let's say, two kids. And let's suppose that there is some kind of a tax issue that's come up that nobody foresaw.
Mm,
Sometimes there are ways where you can adjust the trust after the probate's over with to deal with that. So there are some sort of back end things that can be done to help people. In fact, there almost always are, but I would say most of the stuff we do is front end
yeah.
because that's I mean we can there's just more we can do for them, you know.
And I would agree. I think most of the stuff we do, our audience does, is back end, but there should be the understanding, those of you that are in the real estate space, you should have the understanding that you're there to make their probate process easier, not just sell a house. You're there to make their probate process easier, as easy as it can be, because probate can sometimes get rather complicated, as easy as it can be, and then help them and the beneficiaries, help them and their family avoid that process in the future. There have been so many times that I've dealt with probate with very high net worth individuals that I would be shocked didn't set up a trust or something like that when they were living, and it goes through probate, and the heirs many times don't have any clue how to manage money, don't have any clue how to manage assets and estates. It's one of the reasons why they sell. So I don't know how to do this. In a lot of cases, they should utilize services of someone like David who can help them create a plan for themselves so that their family, their heirs don't have to go through this complicated process in the future. And if you want clients for life, this is how you create it. You help them avoid the one thing that brought you to the table to begin with. And um, it's the way that you should grow. So talk to us a little bit. We don't have too much longer, but talk to us a little bit about kind of your involvement, what we can do to support your business, how some of my people might be able to follow you.
Yeah, I'll say that, and then I'm also going to make a very brief pitch for
Yeah,
somebody else's book
great.
because I think it's going to help your agents even more. Okay, so Family Enterprise Office, you know, it can basically go wherever we're needed. We don't have to be just in Ohio. We don't have to just be in the Midwest. Doesn't have to be a primary residence. It can be vacation property. It could be a farm. It could be an orchard. You name it. And the way we would help you is we've got a system for basically um, just kind of creating an overarching structure for okay, what do these people own? Where were they trying to go with it? Is that going to work? Does it need to be adjusted at all? Who's in the family? Do they agree? I think, in my opinion, we have a process for getting people in a family in alignment that works better than anything I have ever seen anywhere else.
Hmm.
And I say that not because I created it, I did not, but it's just very effective. It works. It's worked over and over and over again. So one of the things your agents might think about is like, oh no, if we're talking about a situation with a death, what are we going to do if the people in the family don't get along and we've got a niece who is a complete pain, and even though I'm signing the listing agreement with this other person, I mean, there's like 10 people in the family who are backseat drivers, and I don't know if they're going to be happy with the price, and on and on and on. Well, it sounds to me like maybe we need some alignment of the people in the family, and I think we have a system for doing that. So as far as how do you work with us, well, I think you just dial up the phone, and we kind of look at what have we got going on and figure out what we can do to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I
All right, so let me slide this thing in for this other book, and then
let's
I'll
do it.
and then I'll be back to you. Okay, there is a book out there that every agent should look at. particularly if they are aspiring to have a really comprehensive set of services. And the book is called Who, Not How.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3 words: who, not, N-O-T, how, H-O-W. It's by a guy named Ben Hardy, Hardy. And the idea is that um, if you really, really want to make the maximum use of your abilities, you find out the things that you should spend all your time on the things that you're really good at. And
That's
the
right.
things that you are not good at, or that you simply don't want to do, you don't enjoy, they are not energizing to you, they are to somebody else. You just have to figure out who they are, who that other person is. There is somebody out there who will deal with the part of this process that you really don't care for. So if you go find them and you strike up an alliance with them, it's going to enhance your business even more. It's going to be even more effective, and you're going to be even happier. So I would
Absolutely.
obviously, I think you ought to read, Take Ownership of What You Own, but I also think Who Not How is really good. And I'm honestly, in a lot of ways, I think they complement each other.
Oh,
So
that's
anyway,
incredible.
so that's my answer.
I second both of those books. Okay. Um, Who Not How was business changing and life changing for me when I read it. I have this thing where I'll typically get my books on Audible first, and if it stands out, and sometimes I only make it through a chapter or two of a book, if it stands out, then I go get the physical copy and I'll listen and read at the same time. And Who Not How is one of those that I've done twice through the listening and reading simultaneously. And I find that I pick up more information and I retain more information when I'm reading along and I'm highlighting things that are good. And I even have this process where, depending on my life principles, I will color code the pages of a book if there's something that matches one of my 5 business principles in life, and it's a great book. Um, I plan on yours being the same way. Are you on Audible by any chance, or is it physical at this point?
Um, your audience may be interested to know that we are taping this on a Wednesday. Next Monday, we're going to record the audiobook.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
give us a few weeks, and we'll have that put down. And the voice will be somebody that they will recognize.
Really?
So
Okay.
yes,
Recognized because we listened today, or someone else
yes.
that recognized? Yeah. Excellent. Well, I
But
love
yeah,
it.
there will be. So we got the whole array. We've got the Kindle version, we've got hard copy, we've got paper, and then we're going to have audio.
Hmm. Perfect.
And if they
Uh,
want it, they just get on Amazon and grab it, and away you go.
Okay, excellent. I'll make sure that I link a way for you guys to do that. If you're watching on YouTube, look in the comment section below. If you're listening on podcast, check out the show notes, and we'll make sure that you guys get over to the book. Highly recommend it, and I think when you read it, you're probably going to want to have a couple of extra copies floating around for those current connections, people in your sphere of influence that need this type of thing as well. So go buy 3. That's what I'm saying.
That's right, at least 3.
Yeah.
Read it in triplicate and then go buy more.
Wonderful. David, I really appreciate the time. I know we didn't cover everything. I wish we could have covered more, but that would have, anyone that knows me knows that that would have taken 3 hours. Maybe we'll do this again and kind of follow up on anything that we didn't slip in, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Perfect.
thank you for having me. You're a good host.
Not as good as the host I heard you on. That was Tony D'Angelo's show, and wow, it was a little bit intimidating when I listened to that podcast, and I went, "Ah, I got big shoes to fill." That was a
No,
good
no,
one.
he's good, and so are you. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, David. Thanks so much. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Anyone that's watching, jump over to probatemastery.com if you want to know a little bit more about building a real estate niche in kind of this life transitions phase. And we'll see you there.